Hey guys, it's your favorite mom and dad and your favorite YouTube couple, Sincerely the Carsons. I'm Malik Carson.
And I'm Tyshe Carson.
And today we're going to get into how my wife, Tyshe, found her way back to faith and what got her closer to faith.
Let's get into it.
First question is, I'm going to start hard. You know me, I like to be dramatic.
I ain't go hard on you.
I like to be dramatic. Not only dramatic, but I like to be direct.
Okay.
So let me ask you the first question. What was the day that you realized this is not for me? Like, what was the day that you realized, like, I don't think this is for me. I gotta walk away.
Walk away from what exactly?
The day that you realized. Well, actually, let's start from the origin, right?
Okay.
How did you grow up? Did you grow up in church or did you grow up out of church? How did you grow up?
Yeah, I mentioned in our last video where we were talking about this with you. Make sure y'all go watch that. I grew up in like a fire, brimstone, you on the hell if you sin, very, very, very like gospel, non-denominational Christian church. So growing up there, it was very difficult to question or have any type of curiosity about God, because it was kind of like, if you question God, if you have any doubt, you are essentially blasphemous, you're sinning, and you're evil in your heart.
Yeah.
And so it was really hard to fight to fight your urges to ask why and when and where and all of these things.
Who introduced you to church or your faith originally? Your grandmother.
Yeah.
Okay, your grandmother introduced you. And would you say your family is predominantly faith followers?
Yeah, for sure.
And what religion do they follow?
They consider themselves non-denominational, which I'm not sure if that's in contradiction, but they identify as Christian as well. Mm-hmm. So I think denominational is that they don't go like Baptist, Catholic, whatever. They don't identify like that. They're just like holiness, gospel.
They're just strictly
by the book.
Yeah, just strictly Christ followers.
Right.
Yeah. Okay. And okay, you said your grandmother introduced you into faith, and you were raised predominantly by your grandmother and your mother, correct? For the viewers watching, I know obviously she's my wife.
Yeah. So it was just a lot of times where I stayed with my grandmother like for long periods of time. Mm-hmm. And then I would go with my mother for a period of time, but then I kind of always ended up back with my grandmother. Even if I wasn't living with her permanently, I was just there often.
Yeah. Okay, so you grew up in church, and how was that life for you? Like growing up in church, was it fun for you? Did you like it? Did you learn anything? Did it feel like it was forced, or what would you say your experience as a youth in church was?
I hated it. I hated anything that had to do with going to church. I hated how I had to dress. I hated that it felt cult-like. I hated hearing about the gospel, reading my Bible. I felt it was boring. I felt it was forceful.
Sorry, I don't mean to cut you off, but I want to get to that point before I forget. What do you mean it was cult-like? Like, explain that. Like,
at my church, women didn't wear skirts, no makeup, no nail polish. You can't listen to any type of music. You can't go to the movie theater because it's dark and sinful. You can't go to the bowling alley because they play secular music. It just was like, for me, there is living for God, and then there's living with a fear of hell, right? And I think that a lot of times I grew up with not really seeking the love of God or understanding Him, because I understand hell exists. I understand that is definitely a consequence for our actions, but I also never really understood why Jesus came, why He died for our sins, what that meant. So you just fear like I could die tomorrow and I'll end up in eternal damnation, Yeah. So it just was like feeling like and then the lack of knowledge or the opposing the curiosity made me feel like you need to be a blind follower, and you never need to question why God does what He does, or you never need to seek answers as to why. You need to just listen to what we're telling you, and if you question it, then you'll be punished. Kind of. So it was.
So
just
do you feel it was more like a like a fear tactic?
Yeah, I felt like it was a submission thing, like almost like beating you into shape. You know what I'm saying? Like it was very aggressive. I felt, and I feel like a lot of Black communities take this very hard approach to the gospel. They like predominantly Black churches are very passionate, and I don't find that to be an issue. I just find that like it can be off-putting when you don't really understand where the passion is stemming from and where that aggression or that like you better, like where that is stemming from, you know. So I don't think the intention was bad, I think the execution was bad.
Okay, so well, obviously you identified what you were taught, right? So what would you say was the hardest thing being a youth of understanding the faith?
I think that the hardest thing for me was understanding how God could allow things to happen to me or allow things to be from my elders who I felt were wrong, evil, or just like not acknowledging my suffering. And I felt like the people who are telling me about God or kind of like forcing God on me and telling me this is how to be and this is how you will be, and if not there will be consequences, are the same people who don't acknowledge that things have happened to me, that I've been suffering, that I've had, you know, these issues. It's kind of like, we don't talk about that. We don't question God and we don't talk about the bad things. We only come together and are able to have conversation that's comfortable about Jesus Christ in the form of how the church supports it.
So would you say that made you feel like an outsider or an outcast?
Yeah, like the black sheep of my family.
Yeah. Okay, so saying that, then how did it feel being the black sheep or the outcast?
It made me feel like I was identified as something that I'm not. Like growing up being a young Black girl, curvier than most, outspoken in a way, it made me feel like I was identified as like a whore or like an aggressive back talker, like an angry Black woman or an angry Black girl. It made me feel like I was valued for things that I didn't find valuable. Like I didn't care. Of course I was a child, so I didn't care about having a curvy body, or I didn't care about things like my weight or my hair or all those things early on, but people kind of projected those things on me, like you care about this and you do this for attention and you do this, and I never had those thoughts until people told me that's what I was doing. You know,
told you to have those thoughts.
And told me this is opposing your faith, and this is why you need to go get saved, and you need to go get rebaptized, and you need to go down to the altar, because at our church we had this like when I was younger, I don't know if they do it anymore, but when I was younger, it was like altar call, right? So like all the parents, when you act bad and stuff, they send their kids, they take their kids down to the altar. And so the church sees you. It's a different thing than prayer. Like you going down to get saved, and then you go into this room, and then they kind of force you to speak in tongues. So they like, you don't leave that room until we hear you speak in tongues. So you kind of, as a kid, you act like you speaking in tongues so you can get out, you know? So it was just a very like demanding, difficult situation to navigate, I think, for an immature young mind. You know?
Okay, so what would you say that at that time as a child that you enjoyed? Like, what did you enjoy at that time as a child, you know, where you were like, I don't like these things over here, because you said you didn't enjoy church, right?
Right.
So what would you say at that time and period of your life that you did enjoy, that you find, you know, valuable at that point in period in time? You know,
we have this conversation a lot. I don't remember having much of a childhood. I don't remember finding joy in cartoons or in social life. Like sometimes like my stepdad would ask me, you just sitting here, you 14, 15, like you don't have friends or nothing, you know. And it was periods of time where I enjoyed football games and, you know, things like that, but that wasn't like an interest of mine. I don't remember actually when I was younger having any interest other than like kind of like sitting in my room being by myself watching like reality TV, trash TV, like just kind of bedridden a lot.
So I mean, the way it sounds to me, your joy was being isolated.
Being by myself, like I had friends, but I kind of felt like when I was around my friends, I didn't really fit in with them. They liked me because of things I didn't like about myself. Like, I didn't like being curvy. I didn't like male attention younger, right? Like, I grew to like it. I grew to like male attention. I grew to like drinking. I grew to like having fun and stuff like that. You know what I'm saying? But when I was younger, 14, 15, 16, I didn't like being curvy or male attention and stuff. But I feel like women hung out with me because I attracted that type of attention. So I kind of would rather be by myself.
Yeah. So do you feel like, you know, being in church and kind of being forced and being into that, what you at the time you thought was like cult like, do you think that pushed you into isolation, or do you feel it was something else?
I think it was a combination of multiple things. I think that growing up with an abusive parent or an abusive where my mother was in an abusive relationship, I think growing up like that pushed me to never want to experience that. And so boys were kind of like they were a thing, of course. Like, I like boys, but it was kind of like
on the back burner.
Because it was kind of like a fear of not wanting that. So and don't get me wrong, I was talking to boys. I had a boyfriend pretty early on. But even then, it was kind of like I just wanted to seclude myself with one person and like attach myself to this person. It was just me and my boyfriend, and I never wanted to, like how women nowadays say male-centered. I was that from very young, because it was like my mom kind of identified herself with her husband, and so I wanted to find somebody to identify with, but I didn't want to have like friends or nothing like to like influence my relationship. I just wanted to be with my boyfriend. And so the church was, and the reason I say boys were kind of on the back burner was because along with liking this boy, being with this boy, having a boyfriend, right? It was like, this is wrong. You know what I'm saying? Like, you're not supposed to have a boyfriend, you're not supposed to be listening. I had a lot of conviction. So it's like, it's right to like boys, but not to a certain extent. It was like a dialogue playing in my head all the time. So even to my boyfriend, sometimes I was kind of like isolated, because I started to feel guilt and wanting to retreat from him. But then when I felt lonely, I was like, I need to call my boyfriend to be with my boyfriend. I like that.
So what age do you remember, or do you say that you kind of said, you know, I'm gonna go my own way and figure it out myself? Like, kind of when you stepped away from the church, when you were old enough to not, you know, growing up, all of us, if we grew up in churches, you know, our parents made us go, you know, or our grandparents made us go. So at what age did you start to say, like, nope, I can make my own choices, I'm not going? Like, do you remember what age you were when you were like, I'm not doing this?
Yeah, I was in college. I think I was 20.
Oh, so you were probably older than most people would experience. Okay.
I was like a blind believer for a really long time, like never questioned. Like, I held on to that for a long time. And then I was 20, and then some things came up about my childhood with like my parents and my grandmother and all these things, like, and it was really distraught for me to like have these things come to light. And so I sought out comfort within like the adult figures in my life, and I didn't receive that. So when I didn't receive that, I think I started to be like, something is wrong here. You know what I'm saying? Because I was just kind of like, if anything bad happened to, at this time I didn't have children, but if anything, I was thinking this even before I had children, if anything ever happened to my kids or whatever, but immediately, especially because I believe in God, it would be like, let's set the world on fire, you know? Not because I know vengeance is not yours, but that's just the love I would have for my children. So I think that when I didn't receive that, especially like, I'm not beating my mom over the head because she made her mistakes, but my dad was absent, like completely absent. So between those two, I was just kind of like, something is not right here, you know? And I started to question a lot of things and try to figure out what I identify with, and for a long time I identify with God doesn't exist.
Okay. So what would you say that was your first question? Like, what was your first question of, you know, doubt or non-belief? Why
does God allow things to happen to me that when I'm a good person?
Okay. And do you feel that you found that answer?
Yeah, I feel like I wasn't as good of a person as I thought I was, but also I didn't deserve the things.
What do you mean by that? You weren't as good as a person as you thought you were?
I was an eternal victim for a long time. Like, I used my victimhood. Things happened to me as a child or as a young adult, But then instead of addressing those things